find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And I very clearly am on a road trip. Don't worry, I'm not driving. I'm the passenger for this part of the road trip. And since I'm in the middle of exploring the California coast, I thought I would give you some tips and tricks for your trip to the beautiful California coast. So when I'm referring to this trip, I'm specifically referring to the area between LA and San Francisco. And you can do the drive in either direction, but that's the area that I'm really referring to because that's really the heart and soul of it all. If you're not from the West Coast, you might think that San Diego would be included, but that's really sort of a different animal. San Diego is almost really its own destination. It is pretty close to LA, so you could add it in, but it would add several nights because there's so much to do there. And also it might make your flights slightly more complicated just because the San Diego airport is not quite as large as either LA or San Francisco. So how much time do you need to do the California road trip? Well, it really kind of depends on how much you want to explore and how much time you want to spend in either LA or San Francisco at either end of your drive. A week, 10 days, anything in that area, you could do it in just a couple days, like if you've already done LA and San Francisco and you just want to see the coast. But there are really like 4 or 5 places you could stop, so you could really drag it out and stop at a bunch of places if you want. Like in COVID times, we have limited our stops, so we're staying a little bit longer in just really 2 or 3 places, and really exploring those areas rather than stopping somewhere different every night. But it's really depends on how interested you are in the different areas. So I'm gonna go from LA north, but you can absolutely do it San Francisco down south. It's just the same. It really doesn't make that much difference. So the first place is where we are leaving, and that is Santa Barbara. And Santa Barbara is a beautiful town, historic mission, lots of great architecture, beautiful beaches, and it's surrounded by wine country. And it's just a really charming, pleasant destination. Some people maybe stop for lunch or skip over it, but it is worth stopping. It is worth an overnight. We just spent 3 nights, and it was really, really wonderful and a really lovely place to stop. There's lots of great restaurants on State Street and all that good jazz. So that's only about 2 hours-ish from LA. So that sometimes is a little too quick for a lot of people's first stop. So the next kind of area up is what I kind of call the Central Coast. I don't know if that's the official name, but that's sort of Pismo Beach and San Luis Obispo. And then north of that is the Paso Robles wine region. On the coast, north of that is Morro Bay. And that sort of area is a really good kind of first stop because there's really a lot of cool stuff to do there. Like Pismo Beach has dunes. Again, if you're into wine, the area around SLO, which is San Luis Obispo, and Paso Robles has a ton of great wine. So that's another good stop. And it's also kind of a halfway point for the whole drive. So that is a decent area to stop at. The next interesting place that you might want to stop at is Hearst Castle, and that's right outside the town of Cambria. And Hearst Castle is the second largest private home in America, the first being Biltmore in North Carolina. But that is it's actually a couple different giant mansions that William Randolph Hearst built. He was a little bit crazy, so it's very opulent, very Hollywood in the 20s and 30s, Gilded Age Hollywood, and it is really spectacular. It's up on a bluff overlooking the coast. But you definitely have to make reservations to Hearst Castle. It's closed, so we're not going to be able to see it because of COVID. But it is an interesting stop, especially if you like any of that Hollywood history or like kind of opulent mansions. So that is it takes a good 2-3 hours to visit because it's so big. So that's something to consider if you want to make sure that you have time to stop there. Then north of that is where you get to sort of the gem, and that is Big Sur. And so Highway 1 runs along the coast through Big Sur, which is a national park, and it's very cliffy, and so you have to be careful. You have to double check right up to the day before you leave or the day you're leaving to make sure that Route 1 is open, because a lot of times there are rock slides, or in this time of year, fires that will close Route 1, and there's really no way to get from like Ragged Point is the southern point up to north of Midway Falls. There's really no other way to get around. So you have to, from like the San Luis Obispo area, you can take the 101 sort of around Big Sur. So there are ways to get around it, but Big Sur is a spectacular drive, and that's really like if you want to have a convertible and like drive along the curves, it is really special. There are some glamping and very nice luxury places and camping places to stay in Big Sur, but it's very, very limited. And like I said, some of the hotels and stuff are extremely high end. Post Ranch Inn is a dream destination for me, perched up on the cliffs. And then north of Big Sur, you have Carmel and Monterey. And that's a wonderful area. It's super fun. So much to do. Everything from the aquarium in Monterey to 17 Mile Drive and Pebble Beach and the beaches and hiking. And so that's where we're headed. We're going to spend several days in Carmel, but it could just be sort of a one-night stop as well on your way up to San Francisco. Just north of Monterey, on the other end of the bay, is Santa Cruz, which has a very famous boardwalk. And it's a charming place to stay, but if you have already stayed in Monterey, then you probably don't need to stay in Santa Cruz. And so it a lot of times gets overlooked, but I just wanted to mention it. And then from there, you're only a couple hours from San Francisco, so most people just continue on to San Francisco. But if you wanted to be completist in your California coast itinerary, you could stop at the beautiful Half Moon Bay. And there's why am I blanking? I think it's the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay. Gorgeous property on a bluff overlooking the coast. And that's one last stop on your epic California road trip that you could take. Now, as you can see, that was a lot of different stops I mentioned. You don't have to do all of them. You can do one of them, two of them. But, really doing it well, I would stop 2 or 3 times in between San Francisco and LA. So that's it for this week. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.